Westworld, and this is what we're going to review today. Now, what makes Westworld so important in terms of television series in which they try to use truth to tell their deception? Well, we're going to get into that. What is Westworld about? Westworld is about a whole land of androids that are created by man for their own personal desire. This is all funded by corporate America in the series. And they build this world out in the West. It is a Western, but it also has some very dramatic themes running through it. This is a screenshot from the introduction of Westworld. And as you can see, these are repeating themes that we've talked about on this channel going back 2 years ago. This is the eye. Now, in this series, this HBO series, they show all of these androids living in Westworld, which is the world underneath the cornea of the eye. Here you see it. The land represents the iris of the eye. This is the pupil. There's no mistaking this. And these androids are actually bathed in this fluid, which looks like milk. And this is how they are born into this world. They are born in through the lens of the eye. But the enemy is going to try to twist that. And he does indeed twist this in this series, trying to basically put God down and make us all hate God and think of God as some kind of God who just is using all this for his enjoyment somehow. These are shots again from the introduction of Westworld. We're going to get into what Westworld means. Here's the lens through which these androids are born. Now, at a certain point, these androids begin to become self-aware. They begin to wake up to the amnesia. Yes, the amnesia, which is an analogy for the amniotic fluid in the womb that makes us forget. When we are born into this world, we forget everything. And I believe this is where the fallen angels were in prison in the book of Enoch, and this is what they're trying to represent. Let me show you where this is. Believable. This is the book of Enoch, and in it they talk about, in chapter 66, a place in the West. Yes, a place in the West where there is gold and tin and soft metals, and that these beings, these fallen angels, are buried in the earth in this very location. Chapter 66, let's read a few verses out of this and look at what they were most likely talking about the place in the West where these angels were. And they shall confine those angels who disclosed impiety, which were all the things that the fallen angels taught man. And that burning valley, it is, they shall be confined, which at first my great-grandfather Enoch showed me in the West. This is Westworld, okay? Where there are mountains of gold and silver, of iron, of fluid metal, and tin. I beheld that valley in which there was great perturbation and where the waters were troubled. Now, we had covered this book of Enoch in this verse and talked about these hot springs that have this strong smell of sulfur and that they are fueled by the evil of the fallen angels and the earth beneath them. Okay, this is what fuels these hot springs. And as these angels are released, these fallen angels are released, this prophecy says that in these last days, that these springs will grow cold. And it says that these great kings of the Bible will go to these hot springs, and it will soothe their soul, but it will destroy their spirit. And it says here, they will undergo a change, and they will become frozen, these hot springs. So this is something that we are going to be on the lookout for as we begin to examine future prophecies and future events in this world. Now, in the Westworld hell, they are subconsciously running dysfunctional media programs. And this persists throughout the series. They show that these androids get stuck in these pre-written time loops, like programming loops, algorithms, okay? Now, in our present life, in our reality, these algorithms are actually created by pop stars, TV actors, Hollywood. They are the ones that create our behavioral patterns, okay? And we mimic them. They are the Pied Pipers, dictating our pre-programs, our algorithms. And that is what I believe is happening. We run these time loops, these program loops. And at the base of these program loops are drugs, our given personalities that we actually manifest, our identities, our mannerisms, labels that we apply to each other, labels that we label on ourselves, even all the way down to speech patterns. And I believe all this is very real. And I believe they know this. And this is why they create these algorithms for us to run, these programs for us to run. Now, throughout this series, they talk about milk. And they actually show these scenes of milk and human sacrifice. Now, this is another concept that we've talked about extensively, that milk actually meant human sacrifice. And we explained to you why they put missing children on milk cartons, because it was all about sacrifice. Another subscriber came forward in a video that we did showing that the Twin Towers were the exact dimension of a certain size of milk cartons. And then when the people died in those milk cartons, right about that time when was when they started putting these kids on the milk cartons. Actually, that started back in the 90s, I believe. But we find these odd synchronicities, and also throughout many, many films where they associate death, murder, and sacrifice with milk. It's not just in Westworld, okay? It's in many of these other films. They pour milk out, or milk spills on the floor before someone dies. And if you don't believe me, just go back through horror and thriller movie history, and you will see these patterns persisting. Now, there is the ongoing theme of amnesia. And basically, as each of these androids dies over and over again, they forget. Their brains are wiped. And the theme persists that there is a reincarnative effect going on every time one of these androids is sacrificed in this Disneyland-esque environment. Now here you see basically the center of this actual of the model that they're looking at. This is the scale model of Westworld. This is the inside of underneath the surface of the iris here. They're showing you the iris here, but this is hell. Okay, this is hell. And that's why they depict it in red. And the entire model is backwards. It's inverted. basically what you have is the iris, which is Siri backwards. Any of those of you with iPhones or Androids who speak into Siri understand that you're speaking into the iris. Okay, this is where they're collecting the information. And through this pupil, which is the black hole, you enter hell. And this is where these people are. Okay, they are in hell. And this is where Westworld is. It is in hell. And it's all backward because the truth is actually inside the eye. And I'm going to show that to you as well. Here, these are two androids here. And they say, hell is empty and all the devils are here. So they repeat this theme that they're in hell over and over again. Now, again, when these androids are recreated, they are born into this milk substance, okay? And this also becomes a substance by which they are sacrificed. So death and rebirth occur through this milky continuum, okay? This milky conduit. This is the scale model of Westworld as their masters, their slave masters are looking down onto this plan of the actual Westworld. And in this portion of the film, the floor falls out from underneath. And you see it clearly that this is the honeycomb matrix. Now, where do we see this on the planet? We see this everywhere. We see it at the Giant's Causeway. We see it in Mammoth, in the Devil's Postpile. And we also see it at Devil's Tower, I think in Wyoming. These strange hexagonal matrices. These strange hexagonal matrices. These strange hexagonal matrices. Now, you'll notice that this is inverted. And if you were to flip this upside down and look within, instead of looking out through the cornea and the lens of the eye, and if you look within, we have videos showing you that these become the tree stumps, just like the Devil's Tower in Wyoming, the tree stumps that once reached to heaven. Okay? They're depicting basically an inverted tree stump here, is what they're showing us. Okay? And that is the strange thing. So here's your tree stump going inside the eye. And this is looking outside into hell, you see. The robots are forged in the lens, which is underground, which is exactly where the command center is for the Westworld. It's right underneath here. And they go up in these elevators to get to the surface, okay? And they're forged. They come through the lens, which is underneath the pupil. Remember, if you remember your eye anatomy, you'll remember that the pupil is just above the lens. Here's the eye anatomy, and they are showing Westworld here on the iris. Here's your cornea, and here's the lens beneath. Now, this is where things get very, very interesting. Because not only are they repeating these same themes that we've already talked about long before Westworld was ever even created, we are seeing that these themes are true. We did some videos on the matrix and what it probably means. There is an epithelial layer just underneath the cornea here. There is also a cross-section of the lens of the eye here. And finally, the cross section of the actual lining of your interior part of your eye, the rods and cones. And those three structures of the eye, when cross sectioned, show us the hexagonal matrix. And I want you to let that sink in for a second, because this is deep. It occurs in threes. Here is the corneal endothelium. Okay. This is unbelievable. I believe these were the scales that fell from Saul's eyes in the Bible so he could see, stripped away of the sin. These are the scales of the serpent. This is what we are mixed with that is causing us to see through the lens of the serpent. This is the hex that was put on us through sin. Now we're going to dig deeper into the show, and I'm going to show you how sin, I believe, represents silicon. And when you take the middle letters out of the word silicon, you will see the word sin. And I'm going to show you how each and every one of us have silicon in our bodies, and that we are Westworld. That is what they're depicting. Now, I just showed you the endothelial cornea, which is underneath here. Now I'm going to show you a cross section of the actual lens of your eye, honeycomb matrix. These are the scales of the serpent. Now, how could God let this happen? He didn't let it happen. The serpent infected us. Here it is right here. This is a cross section. It exists as a hexagonal matrix. And last but not least, the devil always does everything in threes, as he infected mankind with his bloodline, the enmity between the seeds talked about in the book of Genesis. In the very beginning, God was already talking about this. Last but not least, the rods and the cones. This lines the inner eye, lines this entire inner surface of the eye. So we have the three layers: endothelium, lens, and now finally the rods and cones. We have the honeycomb matrix. This is the matrix, you guys. This is the hex that we're born into. There's only one way out. God tells us, and even though I show people this stunning information, they can't quite get their brain around what has happened to us. We've been corrupted. Now this goes deeper, because what they were showing here is you're looking in from the inside of the eye, looking out. Here is your iris. You're in the inside of the eye looking out, and they've cut away everything else. And this is the white picket fence and the lens of the eye. The white picket fence and the lens of the eye that Katy Perry talked about. Are we crazy living our lives through a lens, trapped in our white picket fence? Living life through a lens, trapped in our white picket fence. You see, the elite know the truth. She talks about living in a bubble in her song, Chained to the Rhythm. Now, what is the chain? The chain is their evil chain that keeps you in this physical reality, that keeps you in Westworld, keeps you in hell. This is what they have you chained to through their Pied Piper. Chained to the rhythm, chained to the melody, chained to the algorithms. Are you starting to understand how they keep you locked in hell? This is hell up here, you guys. Westworld, the land of the fallen angels. We actually live on the inner surface of the lens, and below us is hell. We actually live in here. This is the looking out into the material realm. This is what deceives you. This is what steals your salvation. You know the two thieves on the cross? You know what that really represented? Your two eyes. The two thieves were the two eyes. And the crossing on the cross was actually the cross of the optic nerves coming in through the middle of your brain. Okay. Now, as I told you, each of these androids is rendered. It's almost like a 3D rendering device. All right. They show it in the introduction of every episode of Westworld. They show these androids rendered with this white substance, this white milky material, like on a 3D rendering machine. Okay. As they're laid out in, onto this lens. Okay. Where all their flesh is added to them, and then they're let go into this world. There is another umbilical cord. And let's first go into what the analogies are of the eye and the womb. The eye and the womb are one and the same. We'll quickly go over the similarities of what this is. There are similar structures between the womb and the eye. We have the hyaloid canal, which is basically a tether that connects this lens to the optic nerve. It goes all the way through the center of your eye. When you're in the womb, there's an artery that travels through it. Its sole purpose is to nourish and grow the lens of your eye. As soon as you're born, it disappears, just like the umbilical cord. It has the very same function. The function is to connect and nourish the child. Now, if you look here, you will see that the child's crown, he loses his crown once he's born into this physical reality. When a child comes through the womb and through the cervix, they say the child is crowning. When actually the child loses its crown is when it's born into sin, born into this reality. Now, the cervix is down here, and it acts just like the iris, opening and closing, allowing the inverted child to pass through into this physical reality. Now, here's what's interesting. When the image comes in through your eye, the light enters your eye, it inverts the image, just like the child is upside down in the womb, okay? You think that these similarities are accidents? No, they're not. This is real. Now, we also have the retina surrounding the eye, okay? And this retina is just like the placenta, also providing nourishment. We also have the amniotic fluid inside, which is just like the vitreous humor inside the eye here. This entire eye is filled with the vitreous humor. The sexual organs of the female anatomy resemble fruit. We did some videos on this. Actually resemble the 3 fruits mentioned in the Bible: pomegranates, figs, and grapes. And those same pomegranate, fig, and grape structures persist inside the inner walls of the eye, kind of matching up with the female anatomy. This is it. They're called bipolar cells, ganglion, rods, and cones. And they, in fact, look like pomegranates, grapes, and figs. And they actually have very similar functions, believe it or not. So this is the fruit of the inner eye, fruitfulness. The true umbilical is the hyaloid canal. It is the narrow gate. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're looking out into this reality, when you're looking out this way, this is the wide gate. The narrow gate is within. It is the hyaloid canal. That is where you will find the truth in the inner structures of the human body that lead you into all truth about God and his Son. And the way out is through the Son. That is the only way to the Father. So when Katy Perry talks about chained to the rhythm, she's talking about their gate, their dark, evil gate, their umbilical, which tethers us to hell. okay, through this programming. Now, what they call this picket fence-like structure is called the ciliary body, and this is what attaches the lens to the rest of the eye. And it is a white picket fence. So in this series, these androids begin to become self-aware, okay? They begin to understand and remember and not see these other episodes in their life as dreams anymore, but as part of their reality. And this is when they decide to basically turn on their captors and try to find a way out. Now, the series doesn't offer any solutions to escape. Basically, both options are bad options because the androids escaping Westworld would only put them in the real world, which is basically another hell, because they realize how their masters have been treating them. That people come into Westworld and they rape and they pillage and they murder. Okay. So how much better is the world outside of Westworld than inside of Westworld? Okay. And at the very end, here's a spoiler alert. This woman actually leads the rebellion. And at the end, she has an opportunity to escape Westworld. But instead, she chooses to come back and stay in Westworld. In other words, the hell in Westworld, at least these androids are gods in that world because they have everlasting life in Westworld because they just keep repairing them and putting them back in there. And they have superhuman strength, and now they have the ability to think for themselves. Now, here's where things get interesting because I'm going to tie all of this in together. If you're doubting the connection between the womb and the eye, I'm going to prove it to you. Substance called Wharton's jelly. It only in the umbilical cord and the vitreous humor of the eye. I mean, this just blew me away when I discovered this today. This is Wharton's jelly. It is a gelatinous substance that occurs within the umbilical cord and the vitreous humor of the eye. This links the womb with the eye. But more importantly, one of the components of the Wharton's jelly is hyaluronic acid. This substance, hyaluronic acid, occurs naturally in a chicken comb, which is basically the inside the chicken, the top of a rooster's head. Okay, it's called a chicken comb, and inside of this is hyaluronic acid. It is a natural substance with a high molecular weight that seems to mimic the synovial fluid that is inside of your knee and all of your joints for that matter. This is unbelievable. This is hyaluronic acid. And as you can see here, it is distributed widely throughout the connective, epithelial, and neural tissues. Remember the endothelium of the cornea of the eye? And it is one of the chief components of the extracellular matrix. I'm going to say that again. It is one of the chief components of the extracellular matrix. It is a major component of the skin where it is involved in tissue repair. It is one of the components of cancer. Cancer cannot exist without this hyaluronic acid, but also it is essential in wound repair. It has been used in the synthesis of biological scaffolds for wound healing applications. And finally, skin healing. They actually found less fibrous scarring in the womb, with the fetuses presenting almost no scarring in the womb because of increased levels of hyaluronic acid. And when they removed the hyaluronic acid from the womb, it resulted in fibrotic scarring. In other words, The child in the womb is protected from scarring because of the increased levels of hyaluronic acid. This hyaluronic acid exists in the skin, it exists in the connective tissues of the body. It exists between muscles, helping to lubricate areas of the body. Are you starting to understand what all this means? Are you understanding that the stitching with this white substance coming out, creating and rendering in 3D, connecting these androids together, is probably representing this hyaluronic acid? It says here, hyaluronic acid also contains silicone. And now we begin to understand what we are mixed with. Who they were depicting in Westworld were you and me. Yes, our bodies contain silicone. Silicone is sin. Silicates are sand. This is why in the Bible we're compared to the sands of the sea and the stars and the sand of the sea, because we are part silicate. It's kind of like glass. Now, this puts it all in perspective. This is a study looking at the cell matrix of silicone. It says here, the matrix from the valve is covered with nodules corresponding in spacing and hexagonal arrangement. This is exactly what we just showed you in the inner eye, the hexagonal arrangement. This is the intercellular structure of our body. We have the matrix within us. It is the hex, the hexagon, and you're looking at it right here. Can you see the hexagonal matrix? This is characterization and localization of insoluble organic matrices associated with diatomic cell walls. What you're looking at is the structure of cell walls within our bodies. This is silicone, and if you take the letters from the center of this, you have sin, and God said the serpent would be ascribed all the sin in the world would fall on his shoulders. Why would God say that? He would say it because it is true that the serpent seed is responsible for all silicone or all sin in the world. We are Westworld, you guys. We are fodder for the elite, just like it is depicted in the film, in the series Westworld, where they go in and do what thou wilt and kill us. Here they talk about the matrix, a bound form of silicone in glucosaminic glycans and polyuronides. It says here that silicone was found to be a constituent of certain glucosaminoglycans and polyuronides, where it occurs firmly bound to the polysaccharide matrix, firmly bound. They talk about a maze, and it's mentioned throughout the Westworld theme, and it is what everyone's trying to find. The maze represents the looking within to find the answers. See, they tell you in the series where to find the answers. They tell you that the answers are within. They tell you that looking at the inner anatomy of the eye will show you, but they never actually show you the inner anatomy of the eye. They just hint at it. This is how they mock God, right? You guys, the maze is representative of the outer spiral ring of Saturn. The outer ring of Saturn is not a ring at all. It's a spiral. And the maze is the corn. It's maize, M-A-I-Z-E, not M-A-Z-E. The cornfields. We are the children of the corn. Corn is more complex than human DNA. that the corn gene map has more genes in it than human DNA. There are several Alice in Wonderland themes. We're going to change gears a little bit here throughout. They actually mention the Mad Hatter. The main woman is called Alice, in fact, Alice in Wonderland. As he's talking to his son here, he talks about the Mad Hatter, okay? And he's reading him the book of Alice in Wonderland. Now, what Alice in Wonderland represents is, if you all remember the story, a young girl who has this wild imagination that goes in through a mirror, a looking glass. She passes through this reflective glass into another realm of opposites where everything is the opposite. Everything is the opposite of what it really is. What we also have is the black and white duality. Remember the part where she picks up the pawns on the chessboard? The chessboard is the black and white duality. She picks up the pawn on the chessboard and she lifts it up to the mantle. Well, what that really means, the black and white duality is the land of milk and honey. It is the serotonin and melatonin circadian rhythm of your pineal gland. I'll say that again. The black and white duality of this realm is the circadian rhythm. It represents the land of milk and honey. It represents the serotonin and melatonin of your pineal gland. Your pineal gland releases melatonin when the light that passes in through your pupil is cut off. In other words, when you close your eyelids and there's no more light coming in from the sun into your eye, your pineal gland gets a signal and it releases melatonin. And during this part of the cycle of your circadian rhythm, something very strange happens to some people when you're going through puberty and the light is cut off through your eyes and melatonin is released from your pineal gland. The strange thing that happens is that you get a condition called micropsia. In other words, you feel like a giant and everything in the room seems very, very small. Alice was in Wonderland and she was a giant. And everything seemed really, really small. This is a real condition. It's called micropsia. It's actually called AWIS or AIWS. Alice in Wonderland syndrome is the name of this condition. And it is a result that some people get when they go through puberty, and also melatonin is released in the brain when they're in the twilight hours of falling asleep at night, just before you're about to go to sleep. And this happened to me. I'm one of those people. And when I would go to sleep at night, when I was in middle school, everything in the room seemed really small. The light switch seemed like it was twice the distance away. And I would scream out to my mother and I would ask her, something is wrong with my perception of this reality. And she didn't know what it was. But now we figured it out. If you go to the book of Numbers 13, you will see that they talk about the 12 scouts that went out into the land of Canaan. They went to the evil eye. The Israelites were battling the Canaanites. There's your duality, the dark eye and the light eye. The Israelites were the pure seed of God. They were the forefathers of Christ. The Canaanites were the dark seed. They were the enmity between the good and the bad seed. God ordered the Israelites to kill the Canaanites. Why? To try to eradicate the dark side that was trying to infiltrate the seed of God, so that there wouldn't be no savior to save the world. Now, when those scouts came back, that the Canaanites, in their eyes, we looked like grasshoppers. We were small, but the scripture also says that in each other's eyes, we seem small. And that is the part about Numbers 13 that people don't remember. And in their eyes, we were appeared like grasshoppers. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. What were they talking about? Have you ever seen a grasshopper up close? Remember, rhythm, the balance between melatonin and serotonin, the waking element in the waking chemical is the serotonin, the sleeping chemical is the melatonin. We're in a balance, the land of milk and honey, which is where the Israelites went. If you look at these images of the grasshopper, all have the same defining feature. Here's the pineal mark. This pineal gland is what regulates the land of milk and honey. So when they said they were like grasshoppers, there was a reason why. Yeah, this is what proves who God is. All grasshoppers have this pineal structure, and it is a perception mechanism. It is a perception mechanism. Now, when these Israelites returned from the land of milk and honey, and they were experiencing an Alice in Wonderland episode where they all look like grasshoppers in their eyes and each other's eyes, they were carrying grapes, pomegranates, and figs that line the inner eye. Bipolar cells, ganglion, and rods and cones. This is what you're looking at here, carried on the pole. What is the pole? The pole is the hyaloid. The hyaloid is the hyaluronic acid. Remember the substance inside of the umbilical cord? Remember the substance inside of the umbilical cord has hyaluronic acid in it, as does the vitreous humor jelly inside the eye. And now we are beginning to understand that hyaluronic acid is hyaloid canal. This is the narrow gate back to the truth, not looking out into the material world. Now, there is a deception, a very big deception in this series, and that is that they depict God as the master of a predestined reality whose sole purpose is entertainment. So they're up in heaven just laughing it up, watching us like we're on some kind of big chessboard. This is the deception. This is what they're trying to say and depict God as, and it's simply not the truth. They depict God as sitting there learning from us in some kind of learning process, or God dividing himself out into our reality and that we are all part of God, and this is some kind of like big learning experiment for God. That's not what is going on here, you guys. What has really happened, and I want to be perfectly blunt about this, is that we are stuck in this realm because of the hex, which I demonstrated in this show today. The hex of the serpent. You guys, the hexagon matrix is the scales of the skin of a snake. That's what it is. That's why it's on the North Pole of Saturn as a giant hexagon. Saturn is Satan. It's the devil. Somehow Satan and Saturn is projecting onto us this reality through sin, the silicone, right? See how it all fits together? We are here, and it is a difficult reality. It's a form of hell. I believe we're in like an upper hell after the fall of man, but there is a way out, and that is looking within the kingdom of heaven. The truth about it is within our own physiology and our own anatomy. That's where the answers are, and they always have been. And what greater way to show us the primer or the inner secrets, ultimate secrets, than for God, the creator of our universe, to implant them into our own anatomy for those of us who really want and try to find these ultimate truths. Extra virgin olive oil. Has lubricant in it, which improves the ability of the synovial fluid to protect the surrounding cartilage and serves as a lubricant, and all these foods do. Salmon, red peppers, cherries, walnuts, kale, apples, garlic, eggs. Shouldn't be too remarkable that a yolk-filled egg helps out your yolk-like synovial fluid. Is a coincidence, of course, but eggs are still high in sulfur, helping produce the cartilage shell that surrounds the fluid. Eggs can also be high in omega-3 fatty acids.
And the ring is happening right now. What does that mean? Wow, it means so many things. It means a lot of things. It means the sun and the moon imposed upon one another in the case of an eclipse. It also means the two analemas, or the figure 8 paths that form in the sky, that both the sun and the moon follow. And so when seen together, it forms the number 88. And this is interesting because those two heavenly bodies, we're told, are tens of millions of miles apart. Yet they form in the sky the exact same path. The ring is also Saturn, which is the circle of sacrifice and artificial intelligence, the all-seeing iris. The ring is also the ring doorbell, and it's their way of seeing everything all at once. Why? Because they've put the masses to sleep and made us all believe that if you're not doing anything wrong, then there's nothing to hide. And so we've given up all of our privacy and our rights and our freedoms under the guise of transparency, not realizing that as technology increases, they can pretend and make up anything they want to about you, and everybody would believe it. The ring is also Apollo, sun worship, Saturn. It is the magic circle prison time hex. And in today's case, it means the coronal eclipse plague patterns that we've identified on this channel, that every time there's an eclipse, there is some kind of mass sacrifice going on. So I opened this montage with multiple images of the ring leading up to CV. And each time in this particular montage, it's associated with plague and AI. Now, there was a film called The Ring, just to be clear, and this is what we're going to be covering. Now, I released this montage on Saturday, but I promised that I would go into far more detail about it on the show this morning, and that's what we're doing now. Let's play this. So this is a company that is currently employing artificial intelligence and facial recognition technology. Let me be clear here. Within Walmart stores all across the nation, 1,000 stores. And one of you pointed out, wow, Casey, that kind of sounds like 1,000 points of light. This is their website. They're called Everseen. And they want to see all. And they want to scan your iris with this facial recognition. And this is why maybe they're making everybody wear masks, so they can see if this works. Do you see the conflict of interest here? That what is at play here is our freedoms and their ability to control more and more people through these events. Let's keep going. Now they're saying this is the loss prevention technology at Lawmart. And of course the logo is the iris ring. And you have to wonder, are they scanning people's eyes? Now, it also looks to me like the bottomless pit. Let's keep watching. Now this blew me away because all of these things, these films, seemed to dovetail in with what is happening right now. The only problem is that these films and TV series came out before the CV even hit China. Here's one of them. This is Westworld. And the AI network that runs the world in the TV series, by the way, AI is 1-9 alphanumerically, 1-9, which is CV19, of course. This is Rehoboam, the artificial intelligence, and it's depicted as the coronal sun. This was before this even hit China. This was already filmed. And throughout the series, they show people with masks on. All throughout society, they're wearing these masks to protect themselves from some kind of a plague. It's unbelievable. We documented all this, of course, but if you're new to the show, this is what we look at. We look at how they're pre-programming us through these television series to basically lower our defenses. Also, what they do is they fictionalize the truth. They basically put it in fiction first, and then when the truth about it comes out, nobody believes it because they'll say, you saw that in a movie, right? This is how their sorcery works. So again, this is from Westworld. Rehoboam depicted as a coronal sun. And basically what would happen is this artificial intelligence would track down what they call divergences in the plan, because Rehoboam is given the power to run the world and to steer history and events by any means necessary. So orders and instructions come out of this artificial intelligence to correct the balance so that things stay on track. So murders take place, as well as they put people in storage. They put them to sleep and put them in storage, locked away, which kind of look like some kind of camp. And basically they have assassins that go out and correct the balance. They call them divergences, and they show up on this coronal ring. Let's keep going. Now, many of you saw my decodes on the series Devs, and that stood for, I can't remember what it stood for, but that was another artificial intelligence film or series. And in Devs, it was all about the coronal, the opening of that, the title sequence. Every single show showed the same thing. Go back and look. Again, that series finished filming before China, but yet here we are. Watch. Now, in the Westworld series, there are actually two, I think there's two AIs. One is Solomon and one is Rehoboam. Both of those are biblical figures, if that name sounded familiar to you. They did that on purpose. There was something about Rehoboam that made him different. I think there was, I can't remember exactly, but we looked it up, and it directly related to mixing of seed lines and the fallen ones. Now, of course, this is the BET Awards from 2017. Remember, 17 equals Q, alphanumerically. Q is the 17th letter of the alphabet. And this is The Future, is the name of this rapper, at the BET Awards. And this took place 88 days after the 88th day of the year on June 25th, 2017. They got to sneak that in, and they're dancing inside the coronal ring or the iris. This is unbelievable. And the song is called Mask Off. And he goes to the BET Awards with a mask on with his daughter and takes the mask off during the performance. Again, long before anything happened in China or the US with regards to the CV. Now, of course, there's The Ring, this film. Now, I tried to do my best to, not show too much in terms of the fear factor in this film. This was a very troubling film for a lot of people, but I left most of that out because we got to look at the symbolism of this. But obviously, that's a coronal ring. See how it looks almost exactly like everything we just covered? I put these back to back on purpose so you could see the trend, see what's going on here. It's released in 2002. But really, they were talking about 2020. All you got to do is superimpose the 0 and the 2. And 2002 becomes 2020. Watch.
I hate television. Gives me headaches.
Television gives me headaches. This was 2002. Watch.
Gives me headaches.
You know, I heard there's so many magnetic waves traveling through the air.
Electromagnetic waves. This is 5G whiz. Okay? Are you starting to pick up what they're putting down? This was in 2002.
Because of TV and telephones, they were losing like 10 times as many brain cells as we're supposed
So
to.
TV and telephone, okay? They're being very specific here. And here we are in 2020, and Trump has fast-tracked 5G whiz and beyond with this new legislation. We covered all that on this channel. And what that means for our future. Electromagnetic frequencies. Let's see. We showed you how the electromagnetic microwaves, millimeter waves, actually look like raccoon eyes when they're graphed out. Raccoon scrambled is C-O-R-O-N-A. Watch. Now, this actress, this is Rachel Bella. She's retired now. She's too young to be retired, but she has, and you got to ask yourself why. Well, her birthday was in 1984. And, of course, we are now living in 1984, but it goes a step further because she was born on March 13th, the very day that Trump announced the national emergency for the CV, which started the cascade and snowball of the erosion of our rights, because at that point, governors of all states were then entitled to do whatever they wanted in terms of executive orders because they were covered under the federal national emergency. She's 30. She's 36 now. That's 3 and 6, 666. And of course, in 1984, Friday the 13th, the final chapter released, completing that franchise, unless there was one more, I don't know. You see how everything's linked in and kind of connected in some weird way? That you can't just make this up. No one can just put this stuff together. It's there to be found if you only understand what's really going on. That these people are operating on some type of demonic level, and that our reality is controlled by it. But the Most High has his plan, and part of that plan is exposing these people so that people stop having faith in this system. They stop betting on this system. Instead, they be still and know that he's God. And they stop believing in men, in processes, in governments. Let's keep going. Look at that. And of course, Friday the 13th, the film in 1984, released on a Friday the 13th in April, though. Different month. Look at the box office, 33 million.
Like, all the molecules in our heads are all unstable. All the companies know about it, but they're not doing anything about it. It's like a big conspiracy.
I'm going to play that back again. This is very important. Listen to her words. I slowed it down a little bit so you can hear.
Like, all the molecules in our heads are all unstable. All the companies know about it, but they're not doing anything about it. It's like a big conspiracy.
Take one person's tragedy and force the world to experience it.
Spread it like sickness.
Spread it like sickness.
Spread it like sickness.
Spread it like sickness.
See, when you live on an island, you catch a cold. It's everybody's cold.
No offense, ma'am, but what the hell does that mean?
So there you go. There is a plague theme coupled with electromagnetic frequencies in the film The Ring. I don't remember this the first time I watched it, but there it is. The cold, spread it like sickness. And now you're going to hear phones ringing. It's all about this phone technology. Cell phones. This is somehow like how it's being spread. You know, they don't want us to believe in this stuff, these conspiracies, but yet there it is. I couldn't have just made this up. They made it up. We're just finding it.
You piece of shit.
So I wanted to show you the cell phone ringing montage with the cell phones. They were very specific. Most of the time, it was the cell phones that were ringing, not a landline. Does that say StarTAC? Cat rats. Backwards. Cats eat rats. Yeah, that says StarTAC on it. Never even heard of that cell phone before. It's a flip phone. Okay, you see what's going on here now? And what would happen in the film, if you don't remember this, is they would watch the videotape. And whoever watched the videotape, a few minutes later, the phone would ring and tell them that they had 7 days. Watch what we uncover about the sevens, because the sevens are linked into Trump very specifically. The numbers 77 as well as 88s are linked into Trump very heavily. And this has already been established long before this decode. Watch this.
Come on, Rachel.
It means ever since that girl's been gone, things have been better.
Any idea how many electro rays are traveling through her head every second?
You will die in 7 days. And exactly 7 days later.
Okay, so you heard her say that very specifically. You will die in 7 days, and exactly 7 days later, that's 77. This boy in the film is now 77. He's not 77, but he's 2 sevens. He's 27, which is 77. And he was... Watch, this is just crazy. His name is David Dorfman, and this is probably one of the creepiest kids I've ever seen in a movie. He blows away, what's his name, from... there was a film called Artificial Intelligence, wasn't there? With a creepy kid in it, too. David Dorfman. Now, 5/7, May 7th, is the 127th day of the year. 2/7. So, 57 and 27 are basically synonymous. So, anytime you hear 57, 27 is kind of the same thing. And here's how you know you have a complete circle. David Dorfman was born on 2/7 and is 27 years old. That's a ring, or a complete circle of sorcery. I'll say that again. He was born on 2/7 and is 27 years old right now, which means this film relates directly to right now. And it sure does, doesn't it? Everything we just showed you relating to exactly what we're going through right now. Okay? The cell phone technology, this talk about electromagnetic frequencies in the beginning of the film. Let's keep going. Now this boy is crazy because he was basically what they call a child with advanced learning, almost like he came from another world. Why do you say that, Casey? Well, at 13 years old, he was admitted into UCLA college. He finished UCLA by the time he was 18, and he was admitted into Yale College. Was it Yale or was it, I think it might have been Yale.
You will die in 7 days. And exactly 7 days later.
Here he is here. There's the boy, grown up. He works for the United States government as basically the lawyer for relations with China or Asia. And you're going to see China come back up in this film as well at the end. There's Chinese writing and all this stuff. But look, it says here, he's the chief counsel professional staff member for the Foreign Affairs Committee Subcommittee on Asia. Okay, this is him. And like I said, he graduated from college very early on in life, went on to Yale, and became a lawyer.
I'm tired. Sweet dreams.
If you didn't hear that, he said, I'm tired. That's him. Back when he was 92, I guess he was, if he's 27 now, you can do the math on that.
I don't have enough time.
So he says we don't have enough time. And here are some confirmations in the film. This number 27 repeats again, so I'm not making any of this up. It repeats on this ticket in a circle, in a mirror, in a ring. 2772 is a mirror of the number 27. It's forward and backward the same thing. Now, for some of you that are seeing these kinds of decodes for the very first time, you'll understand that this is a decode on a much higher level than you've probably ever seen anywhere on YouTube. And I don't take credit for that. All that glory goes to the Most High. He's revealing these things because he wants people to wake up from this stuff and knock it off and have your eyes fixed on heaven instead of here on earth and the promises made to you here on earth. Elections mean nothing. They're just a way to consent to evil. That's all they are. People at the top are all puppets of the devil. Every single one of them. On both sides of the aisle. Stuff like this proves it. Let's keep going.
You'll die in 7 days. And exactly 7 days later.
Moscow Island.
Okay, so now we're getting into a portion of the decode here where basically on the tape she's able to find where this was filmed at. And it was filmed at this lighthouse on Moscow Island. Now this island is a very bizarre island. It's actually a fictional island. But the photographs that were used for this fictional island came from an actual real lighthouse and a real island. Watch. There it is there. There's the image that she got from the camera. She was able to match it up with the island. Moscow Island is the fictional name, and the real name is...
Moscow Island.
Yakina Head Light. Notice the Q in the word Yakina. Now, if you think that that's weird, in case you're cherry picking, watch all the Qs that show up in the film The Ring. This is one of like 5 Qs that show up. Look at the coordinate, 44 degrees. Danny Dorfman, DD is 44. Keep going. Of course, it's in Oregon. There's also a Seattle, Washington link in this film. She's on a ferry, and that is where the first case was identified of the CV. Here's your 66. Remember, I see a red door and I want to paint it black from 1966. Trump's 66th floor penthouse. Well, the 66 goes on and on because the lighthouse was in 1966, as well as the film when this patient died that they videotaped was all in 1966. Everything's coming full circle. Paint It Black, 1966. We covered that on many videos. It was in the film The Devil's Advocate. It was the last song in the closing credits. This song played. I see a red door and I want to paint it black. And of course that was filmed at Trump Tower. And Al Pacino says 1966, what a number. Go back and look at the script. And we saw the remake of the song I See Paint It Black by H.E.R. And what's her name? Oh, Michelle. Was that her name? And they did the Super Bowl commercial, Paint It Black, and they run through the wall, a red wall, and it turns black. Trump said, I want to paint the red wall black. In speaking about the wall down in Mexico, because the sun will make it hot and it will burn the people as they try to climb the wall. Casey, the wall's not red. Yes, it is. After it gets rained on, it turns rust red. When will people wake up? It will be too late by the time people wake up. There's a 66th floor penthouse. Casey, how can there be 66 floors in a 58-story building? Come on, guys, you're smarter than that. Go into Google and look it up. Most of you guys are, but there's always the 2% that think they try to play gotcha. They come on this channel and go, he's full of it. Trump Tower doesn't even have 66 floors. Go look it up for yourself. Okay? This is where the heart comes in and the strong delusion. God will let you fool yourself. If you want to have faith in a man, God will let that happen. But if you want to actually step outside the right-left paradigm and stop believing in men on either side of the aisle, then you will see the truth very clearly. Now, we did a lot of work a couple years ago on the red balloons, and back then we didn't really know what it meant. But what we did know is that there was an eclipse. We documented that eclipse, and we talked about balloons, red balloons, floating on the jet stream from Russia and China over the jet stream, over the Pacific Ocean, and onto United States, landing in Seattle. We told you all that 2 years ago. Now, I'm not a prophet, but hindsight is 20/20. And that just gave me chills because we talked about all that. And here we are. These are the 99 red balloons. This is it right here. All you got to do is draw strings on here. Let's keep going. So basically the film progresses and they begin to have like symptoms as the 7 days before their death occurs. They get like these symptoms, bloody noses, water starts coming out of everything. And as they're investigating, trying to get down to the bottom of how they can stop their own deaths from happening, right? And so they have to research the past and where this videotape came from and what it is that they need to do to stop all this from happening. And the psychiatric facility that this woman was locked in is called Eola, which sounds a lot like the word you see on your screen. And of course, blood drips out of his nose, which is exactly what happens when you get Eola, right? Watch this. So again, I want to repeat the plague theme in a film that I don't remember this being about a plague, but it actually was. So here we're back to the lighthouse, and there's more information on the lighthouse, and this is where we get into the number 19. And we've covered the number 19. It's CV19. It's all kinds of things. It's 1/3 of the number of 57. It's the only factor of the number 57. If it wasn't for 19, 57 would be a prime number. So here we have the 19s. I want you to watch very closely about what I'm going to show you next. There's a 17. Actually, no. We're going to talk about the 17s first, then we'll get into the 19s. My bad. So the name of the ferry she's on is called the Quinoa. Starts with a Q, so there's another Q. You got the lighthouse that has a Q in it. You also have 13 feet 4 inches. That's 17. That's another Q. Watch. Q has put everybody to sleep, given the president a pass with the hope that the deep state will be rounded up, and it's never going to happen. We're going to be rounded up. Of course, the other Q is quarantine. It's another Q. As I told you, the film was full of Qs. And they talk about quarantining these horses because that was in the video too. In the videotape that causes your own death, they show these horses that had some mystery illness that they couldn't identify, which would cause the horses to run out in the ocean and drown themselves. Respiratory, what's the word? Respiratory, I can't think of it. You know what I'm saying though. Failure, respiratory failure would be drowning, right? We're the horses in this film. It's all of us. Mystery sickness strikes Morgan Ranch horses.
Mysterious sickness strikes Morgan Ranch horses. Investigators search for answers after second horse drowning.
Now, the tarot cards. Card 18 and card 19. Card 18 is the moon, the dark horse. Card 19 is the sun, the white horse. And in this scene, I believe what they were depicting is the dark horse going over the edge, leaving the white horse. I believe she's the only survivor in the film. She's the white horse. And jumps over the ship with the Q in it. Unbelievable. Quinault. There it is right there. You can't make this up. Seattle, Washington, that's where the first case happened. Or we're told it happened. I don't believe any of this at all. Okay? I think it's all smoke and mirrors to do exactly what they're doing. Now, they call it a toxic fungi in the film. And look what we have here. You can tell a lot by looking at the details. What do they say? The devil's in the details, right? Well, it absolutely is. This is how he hides his stuff. Look at this. Testing, isolation, quarantine. This is everything we've been talking about. Further testing needed. They want to test everybody. Keep it in the garage until spring. Keep it in the garage all spring should be what happened to us, right? Started in March. So there's your number 19, XIX. Now we're going to look at the 19s. Kind of jumped the gun earlier in the show. There's your XIX, which is the number 19 in Roman numerals, in case you didn't know. And there's the white horse. We covered this. There's your sun, the coronal sun. There's the wall behind the child. And this particular tarot card often shows this child as two children, a Gemini. I believe this is the trump card. And it is a trump card in the tarot deck, believe it or not. "19 miles. That lighthouse is visible out to sea." There's more.
Unless you're renting a movie.
19 upside down on the door. There are the twins, the Gemini twins on the tarot card. 19 rungs on the ladder. Now I paused this. I had to count this like 2 or 3 times because I couldn't believe it. The ladder. Now, as the show starts to wind down, we're going to get into what this ladder means, what wells mean, a well, W-E-L-L, because that's prominent in the film. I'm going to be very specific because we've uncovered something that I don't believe, a lot of people really know about. And this will help build your faith because what you're going to see is that there's a logical explanation and reason for everything that happened in the Bible. The woman at the well. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what wells represent and how it's depicted in the film here. There are 19 rungs on this ladder. And it's weird because the ladder appears later in the film too, and it's got 20 rungs later in the film. But as you can count here, let's count them. Let's start from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 rungs on this ladder. There's your CV19, as well as 1/3 of the number 57. That's 57 is, of course, 5G whiz. The signal that gives you headaches through the TV and cell phones, as we heard in the beginning of this decode. Let's keep going. Wow. There's the antenna that distributes the signal or collects the signal XIX, Roman numeral 19. Now, this was the drawing that the boy did, David Dorfman. And he was actually admitted to Harvard. Thanks for the correction, you guys said. Not Yale. He was admitted to Harvard at the age of 18 years old. No one, to my knowledge, has been able to do that. There was something different about this child. This is why they made him star in this film. And this is why he works as a liaison to Asia right now. XIX-19. The antenna is a metaphor for 5G whiz. And there it is on the top of the house, and as you can see, it is very clearly XIX, the antenna on the top of the house. Now, I'm going to pause here because I want you to remember the study that Bill Gates funded to study how cancer cells can be used in VCs, and how his Gates Foundation chairperson did experiments on patients in which they electrocuted parts of their brain that made them forget people's faces. There's something very dark going on about us concealing our faces with masks. Very dark. And of course, there's a faceless component to the film The Ring, as all the faces get scratched out, like quarantine masks.
Is the same camera?
So, what do you think?
Now, they finally figure out where the well is, this girl, and they found out that she got thrown down the well by her own mother. Okay? And ladders and wells are portals. I promise you we would talk about this. And as you can see by the movie cover, the ring is actually formed when the cover of the well begins to be closed in on the well. So from the vantage point of view, being down in the well, you're looking up at the sunlight, which would be basically represent the sun, and the cover of the well is slowly put over it. That would be like the moon. And they're telling you right there that that the sun and the moon are exactly the same size. They're telling you right there, because the cover is the same size as the opening. That's why it covers it perfectly. They're telling you right there. They're not millions of miles apart. They're the same size, and they're very close together. Watch this.
Now I should drop something.
Now, wells, water and wells are the portals into this life and out of it, whether you go up toward heaven or down to hell. Make no mistake, it will be a water world portal. Okay? So there is the covering, the eclipse. They show it here. Okay. Let's play this a little bit. See this? And this is when these sacrifices kick off. They kick off during eclipses. And the CV sacrificial event took off and got kicked off on 12/26/2019. There was an eclipse. And the eclipse that happened looked like a smiley face right underneath China. Here it is right here. We've dubbed this the smiley face eclipse. And everything before and after this event basically foreshadowed the coming of the CV. Now, on 12/26/19, if you look back at the timeline, nobody even in China knew what they were dealing with. They had finally identified and actually named the CV on this date. On this date, the CV was named. You can look it up yourself. They finally named it. This is important. This is the smiley face. And everything about the CV is all about smiling. Remember, what's her name? Lady Gaga. Smile. She sang the song Smile by the guy that did the black and white films. God, I'm drawing a blank this morning. Apologies, you guys. There's so much information, and I'm trying to grab it in my brain. Because if I'm not telling you all the details, you're just going to write this off as all coincidence. But basically, she sang a song by the meme guy. He was one of, he did the memes back in the day with the silent films. And, of course, we know what he was about. You can look at what his affinity was for. YouTube won't let us say anything else. They've deleted all links to that. And she said, smile together, at home together. Okay? And then we found all the smiley faces throughout cinematic history that all related to plague. That would be like The Howling, where they would leave the smiling face as a calling card. We also saw it in another Doctor Who episode. There was a smiling robot who was trying to inject people for a plague. Okay? We saw it in the film 2012, where Woody Harrelson had a smiley face on his refrigerator as they were talking about the destruction of the world economy. Right? And here it is here. Now, the eyes of the smiley face eclipse are formed by two lakes in Russia. There, you can almost see them there. They form the two eyes of the smiley face. There it is there. There you can see the eyes vaguely right here. Here and here. These are the two eyes of the smiley face. It's like a creepy smiley face. Why do they do this, Casey? Because these people worship the sun. Apollo. That's what I've been telling you over and over again. Sun worship. Now, your eye is a portal as well. Okay? So they're going to depict this eye as the well, as the portal. They go from her iris to the well. What do you mean, Casey? Well, there's water inside your eye. It's called the vitreous humor. And this is like, you notice how your iris moves in and out. It dilates and contracts. It can form a narrow gate or a wide gate. When your iris is contracted into a narrow gate, that would mean there's a lot of light in the room. Everything is reversed in this reality. Everything. So too much light will give you pinpoint pupils, because that's the light from outside. You don't want that light. You want the light, the lamp from within. Heaven. This is why Christ told you to focus on, keep your eyes fixed on heaven. Which would mean the outside world would be dark. Your iris would then basically open up. You're focusing on the light from within, and there's your narrow gate. Now watch this. There's more to this. Now I didn't edit that. It just cut from the eye to the well. It wants you to know that this is the narrow gate, or the wide gate to hell. And everything's reversed. And then she shows a reverse baptism I mean, this is, you can't get more evil than this. Reverse baptism. Okay.
Imagine being stuck down a well all alone like that. How long can you survive?
You could survive for 7 days.
Now, let's go back here. All right. Let's get into some stuff here. This guy's name, excuse me, is Noah in the film. What did Noah do? Noah got on an ark, right? And it rained for 40 days and nights, and he preserved the seed of all living things. In effect, Noah went through a portal, did he not? He went through a type of well. How long is a child in the womb? 40 weeks. That's a water world, a portal from wherever God has us stored to this life, to this prison. So you go through the birth canal, which is a well. Believe it or not, the birth canal is spiraled. It's actually spiraled musculature. It's a portal. And the Bible actually says that the womb is a matrix. And the musculature of the actual womb is full of diamonds. This is crazy. I got to show you this. Musculature womb. Let's see if it'll pull up. Let's see. Let's go to images here. It's basically set up in a spiral. Now I've done, oh, here it is. That's a good one here, I think. All right. So what you have is you've got the womb here, and the way the muscles are set up. See how this works? It spirals around and down. And we showed you videos of a child being born, and they kind of spin out of the womb. Now, if you're an OBGYN, you know what I'm talking about. The child spins out of the womb. They pull them, they enter into the lower part of the birth canal, and then they kind of like spin around and out into this world of sin. And that's why when the Bible says you're born into sin, it wasn't making that up. It knew you're born into the hex. Now, your eyeball is very much synonymous with the womb. We've covered this in the body code series. Inside your eye. Wait, hold on. Let's go back to the eye here. This is your cervix. The iris opens and closes. Inside is the womb, full of water, the vitreous humor. There's also what appears to be a metaphor for the umbilical cord. It's called the hyaloid canal, and it feeds the lens of the eye when you're in the womb with nutrients to develop the lens of your eye. And there is rods, cones, bipolar cells, and ganglion all around the edge of this eye inside. And that's how you see. There are 3 structures, and they look like figs, pomegranates, and grapes. Almost exactly like that. And we have also, what else is there? God, it's been so long since I've done the body code series. But the image that comes in is upside down. Just like a child in the womb is upside down. When the child's head passes through the iris or the cervix, it crowns. It crowns. Just like the coronal sun. See how everything's backwards and flipped around and inverted? And so now here's where things are confirmed 100%. There's a substance in the body called the Wharton's jelly, Whartons. You can look it up yourself. It only occurs in 2 places in the human body, in the umbilical cord and the vitreous humor of the eye. Those are the only 2 places in the body it shows up, confirming that the womb is a metaphor for the eye. Now, God says, be fruitful and fill the earth. In the Bible, it says, the fruit of the womb. Well, that's like the fruit that surrounds the eye. The ganglion, bipolar cells, and rods and cones look like figs, grapes, and pomegranates. And remember the pole of Eshcol that the 12 tribes of Israel brought back from the land of Canaan, filled with figs, grapes, and pomegranates? They were carrying on a pole. And that was the pole that goes through the middle of your eye, called the hyaloid canal, carrying the fruit of the eye. They saw giants in their eyes and each other's. Go read Numbers 13. Now all that really happened, but God is amazing because he led the people through a path that could later be written down and confirm everything we're telling you right now. So, the eye is an analogy for the womb. Now, if you want more information on that, we have a series called the Body Code Series Playlist. It's on this channel and Reloaded. Interstars Reloaded. Either one. But now you're starting to see what this narrow gate really means, and the well, and the number 40. The number 40 goes even deeper, because not only did it rain 40 days and nights for Noah, and not only is a child in the womb for 40 weeks, which just so happens to be 280 days, 28-day cycle of a woman. See how everything comes full circle? 28-day cycle, 280 days in the womb, 40 weeks. Amazing. Isn't God amazing? And he's revealing it to all of you now, because we are in the last days. This is it. Now, there's more, which relates to water, the water portal, because the Israelites, or the ancient Hebrews, we should call them, after the Exodus, went through the Red Sea, the water. And they were in the wilderness for 40 years. There's your 40 again, in the water world, through the portal, through the Red Sea. You know what the Red Sea really is? That's the amniotic fluid in the blood. It comes out during birth. It's the Red Sea. And the 12 tribes were a remnant. A remnant of people holding the flesh of humanity, the pure flesh that was not tainted by the dark side, tainted by the other bloodlines. And that's why you have 12 ribs. Everything goes forwards and backwards. It completes a circle. That's the light side version of what I'm telling you. The devil tries to recreate things in the dark side, which is what we're covering now, this movie, right? But there is a light side to everything, and that is that the 12 ribs of your body, there are 2, 3, and 7 ribs, which total 12. There are true ribs, false ribs, and floating ribs, 2, 3, and 7. And so when you think of the 12 tribes of Israel, think of them as 12 ribs, holding the flesh. But they had to learn to go from the 12 ribs of the beast up into the brain, which is the 12 intracranial nerves that control your entire, but it's through which you experience this reality, through these 12 intercranial nerves. All of your reality is experienced through 12 nerves on each side of your brain. 12. That's why there were 12 disciples. That's the 12s because you go over and over and over again. So when people say, oh, Casey's into numerology, you're missing the entire point. The Bible is all about numbers. If you don't understand the numbers, you don't understand the Bible. Because you can't link the stories together. You're seeing the stories as separate stories when they're actually all linked together. Well, Casey, where's the 12 with Noah's Ark? The ark was a boat with ribs. They contained the flesh of all living things. And Noah had to carry that flesh through the portal to the other side. Oh, there's more. There's more 40s. Jonah prophesied in Nineveh for 40 days as they fasted. Water, Nineveh, the belly of the whale. So now hopefully after that you understand what water is, wells, and portals. They're all related. Now if you go through the wide gate, that's the bottomless pit. And in the film, they actually drop a rock down and it doesn't seem like there's a bottom. It's basically signifying the bottomless pit, okay?
Imagine being stuck down a well all alone like that. How long can you survive?
You could survive for 7 days.
Now you look on the wall here and it says Girl Tuesday. And look at, there's the monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, say no evil, right? And I looked everywhere for this poster from the movie. Could not find it. Not to say that there wasn't a Girl Tuesday somewhere in 2002. My point is that they chose this year to make a film in the UK called Girl Tuesday. I couldn't believe it. Confirming that here we are full circle. Now I don't know what this is about, but there's a film. How many years do they make films called Girl Tuesday? Just so happens to be a 15-minute short film, a romance. They're released on January 30th, 2020. It's because they know. And there's probably a deeper meaning to Girl Tuesday that I don't know yet. But all we can confirm now is that there's a link between the film The Ring and Girl Tuesday to now. And I can go down the Girl Tuesday rabbit hole, but I'm not going to do that. Because we've already exposed them for what they're doing. So what this is really all about is they are hoping that this will change us somehow. They want us reborn in the image of the ring or the beast. The birth of the beast from the pit. The black hole coronal sun. 19 times 3 is 5G whiz. 57.
What's wrong with you?
Boom. There's your Chinese writing, which relates right back to the boy who's now working with Asia. Now, I don't read Chinese, but hopefully somebody can decode that who does read Chinese. There may be more to that. And it's about as far down the rabbit hole as I wanted to go.